Hello and welcome to 10 Walks Explain Everything. I'm Nicholas Walton and this is the first of the walks that I'm using to explain the Netherlands. Most astonishing country, one well worth explaining and one well worth walking across. I'm doing this first walk in an unlikely corner of the Netherlands. It's in a province called Flevoland. There's a duck taking off behind me. Province of Flevoland, which is a reclaimed province. I'm in Emmeloord, which as you can see is quite new. It's not one of those beautiful old towns like Zwolle just down the road, 20 kilometers away where I'm staying. Emmeloord is all new because this is all reclaimed from the sea. But there's one little bit that is not new, and that's where I'm walking to. It's the former island of Urk. It used to be a fishing village on an island. And it is still a very isolated place, but I'm walking pretty much due west from Emmeloord out to what used to be the sea, across all the reclaimed land, flat as a pancake. And then I'm pretty much a tiny bit south, and then I'm in Urk, which is joined on three sides by the reclaimed land. It's going to be a very strange walk, I think very striking, but I think that you need to start looking at the Netherlands in a different way to the ways that are so familiar, the windmills and the clogs and the drugs and sex of Amsterdam and the liberalism, if you really want to understand it. So that's what this first walk is about. All of these red, white and blue flags that you can see flying from the fronts of these immaculately tended gardens are because it's just been King's Day, and the Dutch have got a great capacity for both pride and fun. Fun meaning dressing up in orange, celebrating traditions and Dutch history, eating bitterballen, drinking a lot of Heineken, probably playing a bit of techno music. There's going to be a lot of straight lines in the walk today. There's a friend of mine, an old colleague of mine, who married a man from Texas, said sometimes it's so flat that if your dog runs away, you can still see it running 2 days later. That's what it feels like in Flevoland. It says here that Emmeloord is known as the Potato City. I think that's something I can get on board with. It's a great thing to be. Now, very few places around the world, very few countries have as strong a brand image as the Netherlands, especially small ones, if you think how small this place is. And the Dutch one is a very positive one. If you think about the beautiful city of Amsterdam, Golden Age Amsterdam, with its artists, with its tall buildings tottering over the canals, a remarkable place. And then, of course, you have the things associated with it, the propensity for having a party, the sex and the drugs of Amsterdam, the high art. And then there's the liberalism of the place. You know, the anything goes, as exemplified by the drugs and so on in Amsterdam and the sex. But then why were so many people blindsided by figures such as Geert Wilders, the populist anti-Muslim, anti-immigration leader who did so well, top party in the 2023 October elections? That took a lot of people back. It's as if the reality of the Netherlands didn't quite mesh with the brand, or at least what we think of as the brand of the Netherlands. So, do we really know this place? Now, I lived in the Netherlands for 4 years. We lived in the beautiful town of Delft in Zuid-Holland. Thoroughly recommend it to anybody visiting or wanting somewhere to live. And what was striking was that it was clear that there were two sides to the Dutch. On one, when we lived in the centre, in the Binnenstad, you used to go into shops, and if you tried to speak Dutch, they corrected you. Almost as a point of principle, they corrected your Dutch and then insisted on speaking English. You'd say a few more faltering words of Dutch and they would keep speaking English to you. It was a very difficult place to practice your language, your Dutch, but it was very international. But for a couple of years, we lived outside the centre in a little estate, only a few hundred yards few hundred meters outside. And that was very different. When we first moved there, my wife invited all the neighbors, 4 or 5 houses either side, along for a glass of wine, a beer, a coffee, and a few little things to eat, just to say hello, just to be part of the community. And we sat there for a couple of hours. It was very nice. But then what was weird was that you'd meet people in the street, the same people that were enjoying all of your wine and your nibbles, and they barely even registered that they knew you, which was a clue that there was more going on in this country than the international brand suggests. The trouble the Netherlands has is that famously here the people are so good at speaking English, you can really travel around with almost no Dutch whatsoever. But the universities, they offer more and more courses in English, and they draw in international students, not just from Europe and from Britain, but from across the world. It's a very international place, but there's a real blowback against that. The universities are now being forced to run more and more courses in Dutch, because there are just fears that this country, if it loses its language and its sense of itself beyond the international visitors that live here, then that's a very, very big blow for the Netherlands itself. Let's talk for a second about football. Let's talk about soccer, as the Americans would say, because I think that you can actually date the birth of this brand image of the Dutch as a very modern nation to the 1970s. And it was the birth of especially the Ajax team, personified by Johan Cruyff. It was modern, it was free thinking, it was tactically innovative. It was an extraordinary force. It won 3 European Cups in a row and delighted the world with the type of football that they were playing. So different from the fairly clogging style, very conservative style, and frankly unsuccessful style of Dutch football before that. And 1974 World Cup, of course, they lost the final very unluckily to the great foe West Germany. 1978, without Johan Cruyff, they lost the final again of the World Cup to Argentina. But why this matters is that there was a real difference in style, as personified by liberal Amsterdam and total football and the Ajax club, compared to the rest of the country. And I honestly still see that. Once you leave Amsterdam and once you get into places, not necessarily Flevoland where I am now, but the little provinces that are dotted all over the Netherlands, that's when you start to discover that there is a Netherlands that pays very little attention to those stereotypes and is still as conservative and, in a way, slightly dour, very Calvinist. There is still a Bible Belt here. A friend of mine whose family is from that area says that she still gets disapproving looks from aunties when she turns up at family gatherings, and she has the temerity to wear something as liberal as a pair of trousers. Just make sure I'm not going to get run over at this 4-way junction. There you go. So the Bible Belt shows that there really is a different side of the Netherlands, and it lives on to this day. This is really to introduce the idea that there is a different part of the Netherlands that really explains some of the tensions that you see now in politics in the country. A sense of conservatism, a sense of pushing back against the international liberalism, English speaking in big business, and even migration, things like that, and secularization. That's something that a lot of people here resist. And you really need to set foot in these areas if you want to understand the modern Netherlands. So that's why this first video of the first walk, setting off from Emmeloord, is about that, is about setting foot across that other Netherlands in the hope of explaining it